Books presents an unabridged recording of Arc of Justice, a saga of race, civil rights, and murder in the Jazz Age, by Kevin Boyle, narrated by Lizanne Mitchell. This book is copyrighted 2004 by Kevin Boyle. This recording is copyrighted 2006 by Recorded Books. The author opens this book with the following two quotes. The first are lines written by abolitionist Theodore Parker sometime in the 1850s. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. The second quote that opens this book is from a poem by Langston Hughes, written in 1923. That justice is a blind goddess is the thing to which we blacks are wise. Her bandage hides two festering sores that once, perhaps, were eyes. And now, Arc of Justice.
Prologue, America, 1925. The migrants filled the train stations of the South every day in the summer of 1925, waiting on ramshackle wooden platforms of crossroads towns such as Opelousas, Louisiana, and Andalusia, Alabama, and in cantilevered caverns such as Atlanta's Union Station. When the northbound trains pulled in, hissing and steaming, the travelers picked up cardboard suitcases bought at 5 and dimes, or battered trunks carried since freedom came. Summoning up their courage, they strode past the Pullman porters, racemen like themselves, making their way down the platforms to the grimy Jim Crow cars, settling into their seats for the long rides north. The landscapes rolling past the tense faces looked familiar. The seas of cotton fields that flowed from the Mississippi River to the Georgia coast, the tobacco plantations that ran from North Carolina to the outskirts of Washington, D.C., the squalid lumber camps of East Texas, the blackened coal towns of Appalachia, and the rough mill villages of the Carolina Piedmont. Every place they passed bore the brand of segregation and the Jim Crow laws. Every station had its whites and coloreds signs hanging above separate waiting rooms. Every view had its hidden terrors. 8 men had been lynched by white mobs in the first half of 1925, a quiet year by previous standards. Black newspapers like the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier had given the atrocities front-page coverage. Porters had tucked the papers into their bags and carried them home to the South, to the barber shops and the roadhouses, the churches and the cafes. So the travelers had to wonder, was that collection of sharecroppers' shacks slipping by as the train passed Greenwood, Mississippi, the place where a few months ago a posse murdered Hal Winters because he dared defend his daughter from the landlord's advances? Was that gnarled tree on the horizon just beyond Scarborough, Georgia, the site where a mob doused Robert Smith in gasoline and set him ablaze in March? Gradually, the world outside the filthy windows became less and less familiar. At some point, the cotton fields gave way to wheat and corn. The rolling hills of Appalachia sloped into the flatlands of the Midwest. Mining camps gave way to factory towns, where the trains slowed to crawls as they passed mammoth warehouses and crossed street after nameless street. When the trains pulled into the stations here, the migrants saw no signs for whites or coloreds. In the early days of migration during the Great War, travelers sometimes celebrated crossing into the North by breaking into song or prayer. But so many migrants had made the trip north now, almost 1 million Southern-born blacks since 1917, that the joy was tempered. They knew now that Northern whites were as capable of brutality and murder as Southern men. Rampaging whites had killed 23 blacks during a week of rioting in Chicago in the bitter summer of 1919. Yet, it was still hard to remain calm as the trains reached the outskirts of one of the great cities, where the industrial districts alone dwarfed anything the South could claim. Gary's vast steel works, one of the wonders of the modern world, sprawled across the prairie south of Chicago. The streets of Trenton and Hoboken were warrens of tool shops and warehouses. On the banks of the listless Rouge River, just outside Detroit, Henry Ford was building an automobile factory large enough to employ all of Nashville or Norfolk. The migrants grew increasingly excited as the distant, hazy outlines of the downtown skylines appeared. Pillars of steel and glass gradually filled the cars' windows. Even the smallest skyscrapers, the 21-story Flatiron Building in Lower Manhattan or the imposing Book Cadillac Hotel in downtown Detroit, would have been landmarks almost anywhere in the...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.